I'm Vicky Linnane and welcome to Embrace Therapy podcast. I am a practicing art therapist based in Ireland. In each episode, I will interview guests from various fields of therapy and well-being with the aim to encourage healing through embracing therapy. On the podcast today is music therapist Katie Fitzpatrick. Katie is based in Limerick and she is the Irish representative for the European Music Therapy Confederation. She's been a music therapist since 2018 and her main field of work is in chronic pain and mental health. She worked at the University of Limerick as a clinical tutor and is currently doing a PhD. And as we hear in the podcast, she has just started a new job. So let's jump in. Here's Katie Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, it's cold this morning, isn't it?
Hence the hat. I'm freezing.
Yeah.
Too cheap to put on the heating as well, so you know.
Oh no. And when you're sitting down for a while and the, circulation goes, freezing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you just jumped on from supervision, so you've been busy already this morning.
Yeah, I took a little break. I brought the dog out because otherwise he would have been barking through this. So I thought that was a good call.
Good. Yeah. I put the heater, I have like this little fan heater. I put it on in the kitchen where my dog is. So he's like asleep. You have to kind of treat them like babies, don't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And they feel the cold. What kind of a dog do you have?
He's a lurcher. So he's half like a collie, half a greyhound. Yeah.
I have a greyhound Saluki.
Oh, I love that type. They're gorgeous. The little ears and everything. Oh,
yeah.
Gorgeous. Yeah, they feel the cold, don't they?
They really do. Yeah, he was in his jacket today. Much needed.
Yeah. Mine, I've been overfeeding him, as it turns out.
Oh.
So, yes, this is a thing. I didn't think.
Can you overfeed?
I didn't think you could, but apparently, yes. So, he doesn't fit in his little jumper that he had last year.
Oh.
He's got a little pudgy tummy, and I'm like, oh, that's really not good. But he's a sweetheart, and I don't know. There's just something about that type of breed, isn't there? They're just gorgeous.
Yeah. I love Sighthound.
How long have you had yours?
3 years. Yeah. 3. Yeah, it was 3 years in September. Yeah.
It was 3 years in July for me.
Oh, yeah. And was yours a puppy or was he, what age was he?
Yeah, he was 2 months old. Or no, he was born in April. So we got him then in the July from a rescue place.
Yeah.
There's loads of them around.
You have to be to blame for all of their bad habits is the only thing.
Yes, that is true. Oh dear. There's quite a few of those.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, I think I'm recording, yeah. Tell us a little bit about you and LimerickHere. It's such a beautiful name to call your practice.
Yeah, it was actually, so before I studied music therapy, I was a community musician. And that was, I did a master's in community music back in 2012. And that was part of our assignments was we had to do a business plan. So LimerickHere was way back then. And then it only really came to, actually being a thing when I had done music therapy. Although I think I had the email address and the website kind of saved somewhere, Yeah. But yeah, it was since 2018 was when I kind of started doing my own private practice under LimerickHere. Yeah.
And when you say like, I also started very similarly, actually, it's really funny. I did a postgraduate in arts and health. So kind of similar, like, and I did that, probably about the same time, 2011, 2012. And then just felt that when I was doing the work, it would just naturally go deep and I felt unequipped to deal with that. How did you find that? Like, did you find the same or?
Yeah, I think so. I think I always had an interest in moving into music therapy at some point. I had done, as part of my undergrad, I did just in first year psychology as one of my arts subjects. Didn't love the lectures though, so just kept on with music and English in the end. but I knew, like, I think I had first read about music therapy reading one of Oliver Sacks' books.
Yeah,
Um,
gorgeous.
yeah, and that kind of stuck with me, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely something I need to look into more. But the course seemed really daunting, and it seemed like you needed to have a lot of skills in, like musical skills, improvisation. They wanted some life experience and a little bit of work with different populations, either volunteering or through your own job. So yeah, I think once I came out of the my undergrad, it was only 3 years because I did it in UCC. So a lot of my peers were still studying. So I was like, go on, sure, I'll do something for a year. So that was the community music. But exactly as you said, a lot of the time there would be scope for things to be brought to a deeper level, or things would come up naturally when you're working with particular populations. I did some work with people with Parkinson's in a choir, and people who were getting services through Focus Ireland, so who had experienced homelessness or were experiencing homelessness. And we would have done like songwriting and things like that. So naturally things would come up.
Yeah.
And you would kind of wonder, yeah, this could be probably taken somewhere else if I was able to hold this and navigate it and process it with people. And yeah, so I suppose, yeah, the more I went on, I was like, it would be nice to be able to work one-to-one as well, because as a community musician, you don't ever really work one-to-one. It's all group work.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I was like, around 2016, I was like, yeah, okay, time to do the audition and the interview.
You're kind of like saying it was daunting, but like, how was it then, that interview process? Like, is it competitive or?
Yeah, I mean, it felt very serious. I felt I was prepared though, because I'd done a little bit of reading around music therapy. I'd done a little bit of research in the community music masters. I'd done a research paper or something comparing community music and music therapy. So I had a little bit of knowledge there, and I had that bit of experience working with a few different populations. So I felt like, okay, I've got the experience and I've got a little bit of knowledge. The improvisation and the music skills was daunting. Like, I'm a musician, I've played music all my life, played in bands and still do, but still, like, this was, you're on your own and they're going to throw you like improvise. I can't remember specifically what it was, but like they'd say, something like the sounds of a carnival, and you have to use the piano in your voice and you have to give that feeling of a carnival. Or it could be like a really rainy day moving into a sunny day, or something kind of like that. So that was intimidating. And I think in my interview there was Hilary Moss, who I work with now. Trina McCaffrey, I think, was there as well. And I feel like there was someone else maybe who was just moving out of the course, who was in before Hilary. I don't think it was Jane Edwards. Maybe it was. But like 3 like really, amazing music therapists with loads of experience and like loads of research behind them. So that was definitely very intimidating.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like those interviews when there's 3 people looking at you, it's just like,
Yeah, for sure. And you wanted so much as well, and you want to get that across, but also, you have to be so professional, and and also you had to go into a visit to a psychotherapist, I think was and you do a quick interview to make sure, they kind of check you for soundness of mind and like you have the right intentions behind this. So that was all very new to me. And that was like, wow, this is a serious one.
Yeah, gosh. But it's such a reputable course, and now you're a clinical tutor. Is that the right way of, yeah?
Yeah, I've just last week finished up in that role. But yeah, for the last 2 years, and kind of have been involved in the course doing guest lecturing and helping with exams and site visits and things like that for a while. But yeah, the clinical tutor role, it was great. It was great to be involved in the course at that end of it after doing it, and seeing all the wonderful student music therapists develop and do all of their amazing work on placement, and become so reflective over the 2 years. That's kind of my favorite thing to see. Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's so much growth even for you personally then, because you learn from your
So
students. Yeah.
so much. Yeah. They're so inspiring.
Yeah.
And, getting to see all of the creative ideas that they have, and new songs they're using, or techniques or session plans that they've come up with for different populations. One of my favorite things to grade is they have to do like a group facilitation. So it's like a micro session, 15 minutes in class. And they select a few from the class to be their clients in a group setting. So you could have a group of 3 or 4, or some people choose more, and they choose a population, they choose what the goals are, they kind of give directions of how they want their clients to be in the session, and you get to see like their ideas that way acted out. It's a weird one, I think, for the students to do, but it's great to see what they come up with, because they can be so creative. They know that the clients aren't completely gonna say no and walk out of the room because it's their classmates, so they can try things, which is cool. Yeah.
Stunning. And then like being that person to drop into certain people's work experience, like that's really interesting as well, because like you're kind of representing the course, and you're also representing I suppose the side of the student. So has that been easy? Because like I can imagine that being quite challenging at times. If an organization, let's say, isn't quite getting what music therapy is, or I don't know, have you experienced that? Maybe everyone's like, oh yeah, we love you. I don't know.
No, it's a mix. I mean, so our students would go out on placement 3 times over the 2 years, so over 3 semesters. There used to be another one, an observational placement, but since COVID, that's kind of gone online, and it just means they get to see more therapists work. But so the first 2 are supported by a senior music therapist. So we've wonderful placements like at the NRH, Meets Community Unit with Bill Ahasi, or in Child Vision, Tala Hospital. There's a Corpus Christi here in Limerick is the school that some of our students have been going to. So those are amazing placements, because they get to work with a really senior music therapist with loads of experience and knowledge, but also slot into an MDT who get it. They know what it is, and they get to do some collaborative work sometimes. They get to sit on meetings, they get access to files, and it's all really nicely held. But then the final placement usually is an independent placement. So they're going somewhere where there's obviously been no music therapist before, or maybe there hasn't been for a while. And that's a bit more of, you get a flavour of being the advocate for your profession.
Yes.
So, we all know about going in and being called the art lady, the music lady, whatever it is, the teacher, and trying to advocate for, actually, no, this is a little bit different. This is what it is. Thinking about what reasons for referral should be, as opposed to Johnny likes music, here you go, and trying to kind of establish all of that. That's a really important part of the placement. But I definitely have experienced ahead of that where the students haven't gone yet, and you have to kind of set these up and let them know this is what to expect. They need a room in which to practice. Can you provide that? They need referrals. They can only see a maximum maybe of 5 clients a day. Especially when you think of busy schools and they're like, we're going to get every child seen over the course of these 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to say, hold on a second, and we're going to rein it back. And also, sure, they can use the hall or in the corner of the classroom, or, and you have to kind of think about that. So I think there is, as part of that clinical tutor role, there was a lot of advocacy for the profession kind of built in. And you'd also have emails from places who've maybe had a student on placement before, but haven't yet taken the leap or haven't been able to get the funding to employ a music therapist, and are coming back to you saying, oh, that placement was lovely, could we do it again? And it's not that we never do that, but most of the time we try and say, we don't want to take jobs away from qualified music therapists. So could you consider maybe actually investing in music therapy and, making it part of your service? So yeah, I think there is, and a lot of the students would find that as well. There is like a lot of advocacy, and there's certain, staff members, teachers, doctors, nurses, whatever it is, who will really buy in, and they'll be, your kind of person on the placement. And then you'll have others who will interrupt sessions or, just not get what you're doing. So yeah, it's a kind of a mix of really positive experiences and people and services really getting what it is, and then also the advocacy piece. But I think there's more interest out there for sure at the moment.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. And we even just saw there last Friday, Alison Sweeney being mentioned on the Toy Show as a music therapist for that lovely girl who had this beautiful song. And it just was, again, just that proof of how transformative it can be for someone who's stuck and can't get out of a certain place mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever stuckness they're in. And that the creative arts, and especially in this case music therapy, was so helpful and supportive for her. And it kind of, I think it gave a platform there, like a really good audience.
We're all so excited to that. The tweets and the emails. Yeah, we were all very excited. And Alison is amazing as well. So she absolutely deserves to be mentioned on, national platforms like that. It's very cool.
So tell me a little bit more about your area, because you just said even just you've finished up with that clinical tutor piece. Is that because you're focusing on your PhD? Is because I know that would take up a lot of time.
I know, that would be good. That would be the smart thing to do.
What's the move that you've taken now then?
So this is kind of to do with the PhD. So I've been offered this role in the pain team in the UL Hospitals group based Croom Hospital. Yeah, so it's kind of something I did. I would have done my placement with my final placement with them when I was finishing up in 2018, and we've kind of kept that link. Professor Harmon, who is the head of the pain team, he's a second supervisor on my PhD. So I've kind of done, some pain days, pain management stuff for them to do with music therapy, and stayed in touch with some of the CNMs, and they're a great team. But he's such an advocate, and he was like, no, I'd really like music therapy post. So I worked with him a little bit on developing that, and then it kind of went over, had to be kind of finished off by on the hospital side of things. And it was kind of, I don't know when this is going to happen, if it's ever going to happen, but also it had to be an open competition, of course. Yes. So I don't know if this is going to be my post. So it was kind of like, either way, I would have been delighted that there was a post happening in this kind of a setting. But yeah, the topic of my PhD is music therapy and chronic pain. So to now be able to go and work in that is amazing. So hopefully in the new year, it'll be starting a senior full-time post in a hospital in a pain team.
Done. That's just... Yeah. I know, like, I shouldn't really be saying it, like, it should be just normal. I shouldn't have to congratulate you and say, wow, it's just an incredible move. But I suppose that's where we are, and it's okay probably to say it, but hopefully it becomes the norm that these senior full-time posts. So
and I think the more we see them happening, then there's other areas within the hospitals group who've been wondering about like that placement, or have been wondering about posts, and I'm trying to say, well, look, now this post has come up, so there's nothing to say that you can't propose a post and try and push that through as well. So yeah, hopefully it sets a precedent for further work within the health service. There's great posts in Dublin already, but there's not a whole bunch outside of the capital. So, trying to bring that on a bit more. Yeah. But it's exciting.
Limerick City. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, chronic pain, I suppose, just to kind of maybe define that a little bit for our listeners. So when we think of chronic pain, like obviously we almost feel it straight away when we hear that word. Even it's like, oh, I know where my pain is. But this is a different thing. This is a different beast. A lot of the time it can be because of trauma, isn't it?
There's more and more research kind of around that. For sure, there's a lot of theories about, early adverse childhood experiences being predictors of chronic pain. And there's kind of thoughts around, well, when you have these traumatic experiences early on in life, maybe your coping skills and your ability to handle stress and your body's ability to handle stress is disrupted. And then that maybe leads somewhere down the line to this kind of unpredictable response to pain where it's beyond that natural kind of healing and it's just still there, and there maybe isn't, well, there's a biological explanation, but it's not it's not indicative of, like, for example, your leg is broken, that's why you feel pain. The pain, it could be that, say, for example, you did break your leg and it's healed now, but the pain is still there and it's kind of lasting, and it's about managing that. But yeah, there's definitely some really interesting writing about connections between trauma and chronic pain. But also when you think about things like, there can be cancer-related pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, of course. Sometimes people might be in accidents and have injuries that just don't heal properly, and then that kind of continues on. So it's basically any pain lasting longer than 6 months is kind of the generally accepted definition, where there's no, reasonable explanation as to why that pain is still there.
And, it means it's varied, I suppose, then, because everybody that comes to you will have a very different experience. And then that red thread is that chronic pain. But, when you start a session with somebody, do you have like a minimum sessions? Like, is it 6? Is it 12? Like, how much do you ask for from a client? And obviously I'm thinking about your experiences to date. I know the experiences coming will probably be different, but just even to date, like how often do you get people for a long stint of time? Like,
Yeah, I suppose the work that I've done for the PhD, we kind of first trialed 10 weeks to see how that would go, see if people could commit to the 10. And when we were designing that phase, we spoke to Joanne Lowy in the States. She's in New York, and she's done a lot of work in pain. She's written about it a lot as well. And she was kind of saying, well, if it depends on the person, but also you should see, if you're going to have an effect, you should see something within the 6 session frame. But for me, that feels quite short, and you can't really get into much, and you don't really want to delve too deeply with somebody if you're going to be finishing up quite soon either.
Yes.
So then I was kind of looking at some of the studies. There's some done by Yoka Bratt, and she kind of was doing that 10 session mark, I think, as well. So we just kind of went with that. And also practically, it was what I could commit time-wise over the summer break from my usual private practice work. So I could fit that in and work with those clients over that time. And also it was the time we had to access a room in which to do the therapy. So, there was a few practicalities there too. But the kind of response from people within that, so this was individual work, was that it was too short. They'd love to continue. They'd love to do more. But also people's attendance was a little bit patchy, because as you can imagine, when you have a chronic illness, you have good days, you have bad days. Sometimes there's no getting out of the house. People have other responsibilities, jobs, childcare, lots of different things going on. So that was the first set, was the 10 weeks. like most people maybe got to about 8 out of the 10. So then the next intervention was during COVID, so it had to go online, and it was a group intervention this time, and we did the 12 weeks. And when people were kind of signing up to that, and this was in the feedback afterwards, they were like, whoa, like 12 weeks is a long time. This is a big commitment I have to make. It's going to be, like basically 3 months, like that's ages. But when we got to the end again, it's like, what? That was 12 weeks? It goes so fast.
Yeah.
So I think people probably would want a longer intervention, especially if you're working with somebody around, their journey with chronic pain and it's been something that's been going on for years. Or, something that people talk about is finding like a new identity with their chronic illness and coming to kind of terms with that and maybe reflecting on their identity before, their journey through, and where they're at now. And that it takes a bit of time, like, and you can't really put a number on it. So I'm hoping in this the new work with the hospital that there will be some kind of flexibility for if somebody does want a little bit longer term work, that they can avail of that.
That'd be lovely. Yeah. Yeah, they can touch
and make that call. Yeah, themselves, and say, actually, maybe we'll review at the 10-week point and then see what you want next,
And I imagine that your professor that's, really an advocate will be supportive in that process as well, which is just brilliant to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Professor O'Neill as well in Tala. It's similar.
Yeah. He's great as well. Yeah, it's great to have those advocates in there who see the benefit. Yeah, for sure.
Firsthand, they witness it. It's not, magical, whimsical stuff. It's science, and I love that. And I think music therapy is great at that as well, with the evidence-based practice and how much research is doing. Like yourself, it's just brilliant that you can go to PhD level. We need more of that, I think, in the other disciplines of creative arts therapies. So it's great. Again, you're not only paving the way for music therapists, it's all the creative arts. Yeah.
So. It is, yeah, for sure. And I'm somebody who often dips into the other modalities as well. I have no qualms about doing that. And I think that, like, we all should feel like, yes, maybe we're trained in one particular modality, but the grounding and the theory behind it is often the same. So, there's no harm in taking little bits from other areas as well. There was a lovely conference session. I went to the Nordic Conference of Music Therapy in May in Helsinki, and I think it was a music therapist from the UK, and they were kind of doing a workshop on different things they've picked up from different practitioners they've worked with, be that psychologists or art therapists or play therapists. And it just makes sense to, add a few more strings to your bow that way as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, when we do research in one modality, it is, you can kind of look at it and say, okay, well, maybe this is telling us how another modality might fit or might work or might address some of the things that music therapy maybe isn't, or, might add on to that, might pave the way for collaborative working.
Yeah. I think, I'd love to see more collaborations between dance movement therapists and music therapists, because they should be intertwined, I think, because the body wants to move, so, well, my body definitely needs to move when I hear music. I can't, my feet and my fingers start drumming. So yeah, I can't sit still no matter what. Even when I put on Christmas FM, there's some really cheesy stuff, the body wants to move. You mentioned there going to Helsinki, so I'd love to touch on that, just how you're the European Music Therapy Confederation representative. Is that the right title?
Yeah. CR short.
Yes. And you were there in July as a representative. So tell us about that, because that's something, I don't know, not many people get to do that. You were in Helsinki, and then where was this one taking place in July?
It was in Edinburgh. I was participating online. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out to go.
Yeah.
But no, it was amazing to be part of. It's so interesting to see they're doing a lot of work on recognition and gathering information about the different legal statuses of music therapy across Europe, or how it's recognized in, government documentation, or else is it a protected title. And I think definitely for me, when I started out in music therapy, it was very much like, no, we have to have recognition. We have to get choreo recognition, and that's the only way forward. It has to be a legally protected title, and we have to push for that. And sure, people have been pushing for that for years, but it's a really slow process. And obviously, it would be wonderful. Yeah. But I think after hearing more about how a lot of the different countries our music therapy is set up, and how it's recognized, you start to realize actually it's not the be all and end all, and actually that comes with some pros and some cons, of course. But I think you definitely have like, oh, the grass is always greener mentality when you look to the States or to the UK, where music therapy is recognized. But then actually, yeah, seeing the bigger picture of Europe and how it's kind of different in different countries, and the different opportunities that come up for music therapists, the different trainings, it kind of makes you realize, oh, we're doing really good, actually. Yeah, because even like we have our northern region CR meetings once a month, and you'd kind of hear from, I would always think the Scandinavian countries, in terms of music therapy, they have it together. They've got great courses, they've got really solid research, a great journal. But, when you speak to some of the people who've been working in the field for years and years and years, and they're like, it's actually really hard, and getting work is really hard. And, the posts don't exist there either. So, but in saying that, everybody is still really passionate and advocating for music therapy, and thinking, how can we not all be doing the same thing in our own little silos, but how can we work together? And how can the EMTC, so the European Music Therapy Confederation, support everybody in their own countries? And one of the things they've done is create, and I'd recommend anybody to go on and look at their website. It's amazing. They've created this map. Yeah, it's really good.
Love the map. It was really interactive. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And it has all the different statuses, and you can kind of see what's worked, and you'd be really surprised at some of the countries, the way it's set up. And, there's a really odd situation, for example, in Turkey, where only doctors can practice music therapy legally.
Wow.
But they're obviously not music therapists. So there's something around language, I think, maybe in like music medicine, music therapy, and music listening. There's been some kind of a confusion there. But yeah, it's been really interesting, and it's been great to hear about even just how people are celebrating music therapy. And there was European Music Therapy Day just there in the middle of November. I think it was the 14th or the 15th.
Yeah.
And yeah, just seeing like what people are doing on the ground, what populations they're working with, where the work is, where the interest is, the different trainings, all of that has been so interesting. Yeah.
It really is. It's fascinating. And just to say that again, that the possibility of you joining this recognition action team, you just go onto that website and you can join it. You can just email them. So and it seems like a really well put together team. Yeah.
They've got great action teams. They're also working on trying to they just sent a survey around trying to kind of get some kind of European standards for education, and just finding out what everybody is doing, the different levels of education, and what's kind of expected of graduates. And then you've also things like CPD. The action team for that. We've just started I can't think of the exact word, but it's kind of like accessibility. An accessibility action team. So that's kind of interesting as well. That's thinking about making sure all countries in Europe have equal access to the different things that the EMTC does, because obviously there's quite diverse economies and everything within Europe. And then also thinking about like accessibility in terms of disability and equality and all of that. So yeah, diversity.
No, it's brilliant to see that. And I was on the IACAC Council for the last 2 years, and it's lovely to see what we've been doing kind of echoed, like as in like the larger scale of the European Confederation are doing exactly what IACAT are trying to do, trying to get that standards and accreditation, trying to make it really clear and concise, the CPDs and CPD, sorry. But yeah, I think it's brilliant work. And thank you so much for being that rep. It's great to have you. Yeah.
It's been great. It's been really enjoyable. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your, I suppose, draw towards music as a child. Like, you said you always played music and you were in bands and everything. So I'd be really interested to know, how young were you and why does Katie love music?
Yeah. Yeah. I think like my parents, neither of them are musicians. They both would have kind of had a stab at piano lessons as kids, and like so many kids just not enjoyed it or had a teacher that was maybe a little cranky. But like, both would have sang to me growing up, and we would have listened to a lot of music. They have a great music collection and great taste in music and everything. And then on my, grandparents, again, lots of interest in music. But my great grandmother was a piano teacher.
Oh, lovely.
And she would have worked with children in the community who, had special needs or different abilities. And my grandmother always tells the story of a little girl who'd come in every week, and I think her name was Winnie. And her mother would have said she never learned anything in school, but in her piano lessons, this is where she learned loads. And I think my great grandmother would have brought in, my grandfather was had a shop. He was blind and he ran a little corner shop. And so she would have popped in there, got a bottle of, I don't know, pop, fizzy drink, and a cake or something. Yeah. And they'd put that on the piano and say, now we're going to have that together afterwards and we're going to do our music. And then, so, I mean, it's a funny story. Imagine doing that now. You'd be like, you can't be giving kids treats like that every day. But it kind of was interesting to me because, the music is there obviously in the family. My great granddad on my mum's side then would have been in lots of bands around in Artane, I think. And so there's kind of the music is in the family. I've got some very musical aunts and uncles, who've taught music or who play now for fun or play in bands as well, or who had done. So it's kind of in the family, I think. And I have that little plaque, my great grandmother's plaque that would have been on her front door that says Mrs. O'Byrne, piano teacher. So that's up on my piano downstairs now. But my granny would have always said like, oh, she was doing music therapy then. That was what she was doing, but before it was really a thing. Cool. And you could argue that, but with the cake and the fizzy drink.
Well, it's a relationship and a trusting relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And it was what worked for that child, and the parents kind of fed back that was where she learned things, and that was, where she kind of achieved in her life, I suppose, and experienced success around music. So there's kind of that when you look back historically happening in the family. But then for me, like I would have did a lot of dancing in stage schools and things when I was a kid. Loved to sing, sang in choirs, and I started piano lessons when I think it was in first or second class, maybe around 7 or 8. So not super young. But enjoyed that and stayed with that all the way through school. Had a lovely, lovely piano teacher who was also my sister's Montessori teacher. and we still stay in touch. And I've gone back and done music with her Montessori group a few times, and she's just so lovely. She's a good friend now. But I think that really helped me stick with it.
Yeah.
And then through school, secondary school, like kept going with my singing and dancing, and joined a band with some of my friends. And we did that for about 6 years through college as well. And then more recently, I've started a new band with some friends, kind of trying to get back to that and playing music for myself.
Good.
Yeah, I would have stayed in a lot of choirs as well. I'm not in any at the moment. And I've joined a jazz workshop. That's my newest genre that I'm trying to.
Fabulous, yeah.
Hard work, but yeah, we've got a gig tomorrow, so I've got to go and practice all day today in preparation. But I think, it's always been, music has always been a really important part of who I am, something that I turn to in, hard times as well growing up. It just really kind of, so many teenagers, it's such a powerful thing for, expression and trying to externalize your experience, but also trying to engage with your peers and, create identity or come to terms with what your identity is, and experimenting with identity as well. And, so I think it's always been a big part of who I am. It's still something I lean on in terms of my own self-care and expression, and as a hobby, and obviously in work as well. So yeah, it's kind of invaded all parts of my life now, which is good. Yeah. But you have to be careful as well to try and keep the hobby music separate from the work music, and
it's great
music
that
for you.
Exactly. You've really carved that out for yourself, and these bands that you're in and the jazz, like it's incredible. It's giving you back, and then that will feed into your work.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just being really careful when I'm learning new things, like in jazz, that I'm not like, that'd be a great like chord progression to use in an improvisation, or trying to like, no, this is just for fun. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a lovely image to finish with, I think, today. And I know that you have to practice for your gig tomorrow. So, do you want to give a shout out, like to the name of the band, and we can?
One band, we don't have a name.
Fair enough. Yeah.
We're arguing about it. We have a WhatsApp group, and various names go in and they get shot down. So. We're still, we only started in the past few months. I think it was just maybe September we started practicing together. But it's myself and Emily and Chris. So Katie, Emily and Chris at the moment. And then the jazz I do with the Limerick Jazz Workshop. And if anyone is in Limerick and they want to learn more about jazz, it's a great place to go. They're just an amazing organization, really lovely people, super supportive, and some incredible musicians to learn from as well there. Yeah,
a real pool to dive into. I'd imagine.
Limerick is a very musical city for sure. Yeah, there's a lot happening here. Yeah,
there's definitely something in the water, Yeah, definitely in the Shannon. Thank you so much for your time, Katie, and I just wish you the best of luck with your new post at the hospital, and with your PhD. Like, it's just incredible work, and congratulations with it all.
Oh, thank you. And it's such a supportive community, music therapy, and I think creative arts therapies in general in Ireland, so that you feel like you can do kind of these things and try and get these posts and advocate for the profession. And when you're tired of doing that, you can go and talk to your colleagues, and they can do it for a while for you. But yeah, it's a really nice community to be part of, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah. Thank you so much.
It was lovely chatting to you. I feel like I want to interview you now and find.
Anytime. Love that. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Mind yourself.